Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel and welcome to another video. In today's video we have a coffee and we're sat on the bed, so we know it is a long chatty video, so get yourselves comfortable because today I'm going to be giving you all of my advice for year 13. If you have just finished year 12 or you're nearly at the end of year 12 and you're going to be thinking about starting year 13 in September, you've probably heard the absolute horror stories about this academic year and people on TikTok telling you it's going to be the worst year of your life. It is so stressful, like it's such a huge jump from year 12 and you're probably sitting there feeling so overwhelmed and scared. So I'm going to try and break down everything from year 13, tell you everything I wish I knew, hopefully give you a bit of reassurance, and hopefully by the end of this video you won't be feeling as scared as you probably might be right now. Before we get started, I obviously just want to make a very quick disclaimer that everything in this video is going to be subjective. It's going to be based on my experience, my opinions, and some of the revision type things is going to relate to my subjects, which are chemistry, biology and psychology. However, if you don't take any of them, you can still watch this video. I'm not going to talk about those subjects in detail at all. Hopefully this video is going to be quite generic anyway, so it should be helpful. This time last year I was filming my year 12 advice video, which is currently one of my most viewed videos, and so many people have said that that was helpful, so I'm hoping this video is going to be the same. And I've split everything I want to say into categories. But my experience with year 13, which I'm going to keep brief, but I thought it would be helpful for context, the jump between year 12 and year 13 and that in comparison to year 11 to year 12, balancing both year 12 and year 13 work, revision, mock exams, looking after your mental health, and also how you can prepare over the summer. Okay, so firstly I'm going to really quickly run through my experience with year 13 because I feel like it was quite balanced and I feel like it was probably quite representative of a lot of people, but I thought it would be useful to give you guys some context. When I went into year 13 last September, I was actually one person that really enjoyed the first term. So I romanticised those few months so much. I was living my little Rory Gilmore academic lifestyle. When we moved into January to March, I hated, complete polar opposite, and I think that period of time is probably the hardest. And I'm not gonna scare you guys, but I don't want to sugarcoat it equally, because around that time you're gonna have mock exams, the real things are coming up and it feels very high pressure, and I definitely found that time the most difficult and was a time that I really struggled mentally. And then throughout the actual A-level season, I personally did not find it as bad as I expected to. Once you actually get into the A-level season, yes, it is very difficult, it's a very draining period of time, but one, it's not worth thinking about it at this stage because you've still got a whole year to go. It's also over so quickly. It's going to be over before you know it, but that's kind of my run through of how I found the whole year. Okay, so the biggest thing that everybody wants me to talk about is the jump between year 12 and year 13. What is the jump? How big is it? How do I deal with it? How do I cope? Because girl, I was scared too. You probably might have heard that the jump between year 12 and 13 is bigger than the GCSE to A-level jump, and I could 100% vouch for that. Now personally for me, I do chemistry, biology and psychology, so my subject difficulty may be different to other people's, but this is kind of the general census. The jump from year 11 to year 12 is quite big. It is there is a jump, they're very different, but it's very gradual. They really ease you into it, they don't pile on loads of work straight away. When you get into year 13, it is so much more difficult. So not only does the content difficulty increase a lot, the workload increases a lot. And the reason the workload increases so much is because realistically, if you think kind of September through till March time, that's the time period that you're learning new content. That's 6 months. So you essentially have to fit in a whole year's worth of content into 6 months, and that content is more difficult, and the teachers are piling on more pressure, and there's just a lot more to do along with UCAS and things that was what I was also going to talk about. I am also going to talk about UCAS. I completely forgot to add that into my list of categories. In my opinion, for chemistry and biology particularly, the content got a lot more difficult. In first year you're kind of building the foundations of the subject, and then I found that in second year you actually learn a lot more new in-depth content. For me with psychology, I didn't find a jump really at all, apart from the amount of content. In terms of difficulty, psychology for me didn't get any more difficult than it did in first year. I enjoyed second year psychology so much more than first year anyway. First time of year 13 is quite difficult in terms of homework. I found that I got twice as much homework as I did in first year, and also there's so many more, for me anyway with my subject there was a lot more end of topic assessments. I actually wrote a list of all of the assessments that I ever had in year 13, and that's quite a lot considering how short the year actually is. Obviously that might seem really daunting and scary, especially if you're someone who maybe found year 12 quite difficult, because for me in year 12 I found biology really difficult, and then I was hearing that the jump was going to be really high and thinking, oh my god, what am I going to do? And to be honest with you, I think that the year 2 content being harder makes the year 1 content so much easier. I'm not going to go to the extent and say that it makes year 12 stuff easy, but you are sitting there learning year 13 content thinking, oh, that makes sense from year 12 now. You have so much more skills, you have so much more deeper knowledge, which makes the basic knowledge a lot easier. That is one thing that I found was really positive about moving into year 13, was that it just made the year 12 content seem easier. But other positives that I found between the 2 years, which I think is really important to tell people about because it's not all bad, like there's a lot of stuff I actually preferred about year 13. One thing that I definitely did prefer was the fact that I'd moved from quite a small secondary school to a very big college, and I found year 12 very overwhelming and quite a lot of change, and I found it really difficult to adjust to. However, by the time I was in year 13, I knew where everything was. I felt a lot more comfortable in college, like I knew my teachers and my friends, and I just felt a little bit more settled and in place. I think that's everything I wanted to talk about the jump between the 2 year groups. It is a big jump, but it's so manageable, and as long as you keep on top of your work and you know, ask for help and stuff, you will be absolutely fine and you will be able to do it because everyone does do it. The next thing is balancing year 12 content with year 13. This was genuinely about 90% of the responses of what you guys wanted to hear me chat about, so let's talk about it because it was definitely something that I worried about. This kind of links in with how you can prepare for year 13 over the summer, but I would definitely utilise the summer to ensure that all of your year 12 resources, whether it's flashcards, mind maps, whatever you do to revise, is completed. Have something made for everything that you covered this year, because by the time you get into year 13 it is going to ramp up with the content workload, like I said, so it's going to be really difficult to make those resources during the year. So if you can use summer to get them done, it will save you so much time and stress. While learning new content in year 13, I would make sure, and I always say this for year 12 as well, but especially for year 13, is make sure you're making those resources, making your flashcards, making your summaries of whatever you learned about in class that week. Make them consistently at the end of each week. This was something that saved me in year 13. After every single lesson, either in the evening or at the weekend, I would just consolidate all that knowledge and make sure I understood everything, and if I didn't understand something I would email a teacher and just ask. I would definitely say buy like a weekly planner or make a planning document or something that you can just plan your weekly schedule in. What I would do is I'd get my weekly planner out on a Sunday evening, and I would first write in all of the due dates for my homework and then decide what days I was going to do my homework. Then in a different colour I would write down any revision that I wanted to do, whether I wanted to like go over topics that I'd learned in class that week and like write down where I wanted to do that thing. And looking at the amount of free periods I had left or the days that were just a little bit less full, I would add in a little bit of time to recap some year 12 content. Honestly, I didn't start recapping year 12 content probably until around December time. Like I didn't look at anything from year 12 for the first few months. I'm not saying do that because I think that definitely set me back in my first set of year 13 mocks, but what I'm saying is it's not the end of the world if you're not like constantly recapping, because what you really don't want to do is burn out. So I would really recommend doing is using your summer to make sure you understand year 12 stuff so you've got it all, and then the beginning of year 13 you can really prioritise that harder content because it's going to take a lot longer to consolidate in your brain anyway. You honestly don't want to balance them both equally. You want to have more time on year 13 stuff, but definitely see if you've got like a free period maybe once a week where you can just go over some stuff that you found difficult last year. Okay, I'm now going to be talking about revision and some methods that I use, my favourite revision methods. I'm going to make specific TikToks on how I revise for each subject, so if that's something you guys want to look at, if you do the same subjects as me, then you can go head over there. Talk about general revision techniques I think really helped me in year 13. So the first one is to read ahead. I cannot tell you how much this changed not only my confidence like in class, but also just generally like helped me so much in terms of how I was performing and like my grades and stuff. What I did was before each lesson I would try and look where I had a free period quite close to the lesson, or even the night before, or even on the bus. I would just watch a YouTube video of whatever we were going to be doing that week. Now obviously not all teachers are super helpful and they don't always tell you what you're going to be learning, so I would literally just email my teacher and be like, hey, could you just let me know what topic we're going to be covering so that I can read ahead. I remember a specific chemistry topic, and it was the one I started reading ahead for, and all of a sudden I went into the lesson and my teacher was teaching it, and I didn't feel like I was learning brand new stuff. I felt like I was almost revising it, or just, I was like, oh, I've seen that before. Or specifically recommend it if you struggle with your confidence, and for me, I struggled quite badly with anxiety in my lessons, and genuinely this helped me so much because I didn't feel like I was learning completely new content. I didn't feel super like, what is that? Asking for help, that's really important, and ensuring your resources are all up to date and completed, staying really organized, making sure that you summarize your topics, make sure you go over stuff you don't understand. Like, it all sounds very intense and it all sounds like a lot, but if you block that time in and you keep up with that, it's going to be less stressful in the long run. My favourite methods for revision that I used consistently throughout year 13 was I would make flashcards. I would either sit in class and make the flashcards on an app called Brainscape. I would either go over those flashcards, or I would make a mind map and then I would blurt the mind map. For psychology, I used all my essay plans and I just did a bunch of timed essays, and for all three of my subjects, as you will hear, always exam questions. Spoken about revision, I'm going to talk about mock exams. Now, obviously it differs between sixth forms and colleges on when you have your mock exams, how many sets of exams that you actually have. For my college, we had one set which was just before Christmas, the mocks in February, just in classrooms and stuff, and then we had another set in April, just after the Easter holidays. A lot of people wanted to know how important mock exams are in terms of your UCAS predicted grades. Now, none of my mock exams had any impact on my predicted grades or my UCAS because they were all done after the my UCAS application had been sent off. So if you have mocks around like September or October, they may have an impact. I'm not sure, you would need to get in contact with your teachers for that. If you flop a mock exam, it is not the end of the world. They're not always accurate reflections of how you're going to do. So for example, my first set of mock exams didn't go as I wanted them to go, and I did work really hard for them. However, I was super duper stressed out over them at the time, and I remember one of my teachers really clearly, and this is like ingrained in my brain throughout like all of my exams, my chemistry teacher at the time. I said to her, look, I'm scared I'm not going to do very well, like I'm really stressed, I don't think I'm going to have time to go over anything. And she literally looked at me and she went, if this exam is going to burn you out, I would rather you just didn't revise and you just failed it. And obviously that was not what I did, because I'm not like that, but it really put it into perspective for me how much more important your mental health is than your exams, and especially mocks. Like, it really put it into perspective of how much they actually don't matter. And she said to me, like, look, they're just a practice, like use it as a practice to see the types of questions you do better on, like timing and things like that. My psychology mock, I completely messed up all the timing, and I remember being a bit like annoyed about it at the time. And I thought, hold on, I'm not going to do that again. I'm not going to make that mistake again in the real thing. And if I hadn't had a mock to practice that timing, I could have made that mistake in the real thing. A quote that I use and I like to remind myself of when I had assessments and things was progress, not perfection. From the beginning of year 13, I was aiming for A's and A stars and literally perfection, which is so unattainable. And once I found this quote, I thought that honestly makes so much sense. Maybe you get higher marks on one essay, or you get one type of calculation right, and that was enough for me. I stopped kind of putting this whole thing on getting a certain grade. But my final advice for mock exams is not to burn out. It is not worth burning out over your mocks, and I can say that from personal experience. I'm gonna have to bring my teachers in because they were actually angels. It was my psychology teacher. She was like, I don't want you revising psychology over half term. Again, it put it into perspective, like, oh, it's not actually the end of the world if I don't revise. Did I listen to her? No. Did I burn out? Yes. So please listen to your teachers, and please listen to me, because I've been there, and burning yourself out doesn't do anything. It doesn't help you at all. It actually is just going to set you back. It took me so long to recover from burnout, and it's not worth it. Like, do a little bit less revision and be able to keep going for longer than do loads and loads of revision and burn out by Christmas. Like, okay, so now we're going to be talking about something else that a lot of you asked about, which is UCAS, personal statements, applications for uni and things like that, what you can do is start preparing your personal statement. Now, over my year 12 summer, I basically made a big mind map of everything I wanted to include in my personal statement. I feel like this is a very good place to start if you, it's really hard, like you've never done anything like it before. It's quite daunting, with little sections about work experience, like extracurricular things that I'd read or watched, like personal skills, like my hobbies. I wrote about YouTube in mine. You could also start making the main body paragraphs of your personal statement. I would 100% start with work experience. It's the easiest one to write about. There was a website I used where you could actually type in like the type of personal statement you were writing and you could see people's examples. I didn't finish writing my personal statement until the end of September, and my UCAS application wasn't sent off until just before my birthday in November, so it's quite a long process, but there you go. So then in terms of choosing your 5 universities that you're going to apply for, hopefully by that point you will have looked at some open days and things. Honestly, with it, like, I think the biggest piece of advice I have is not to overthink it too much. I had 3 universities I knew I wanted to apply for. I didn't really know what to put for my other one, so I just kind of put 2 that I thought, you know, they're nice, they're ranked quite high for psychology, and didn't really think about it. And funnily enough, the one that I just put in as my 5th option, like, oh, I'm not going to go there, but I need a 5th option, is the one I firmed, which is the Uni of Bath. So I just think that's crazy. So just kind of go with your gut with it, don't overthink it too much. Say literally just apply to places that you liked, or maybe if they're ranked highly. You recommend getting your personal statement checked by teachers. I got one of my old secondary school teachers to actually read it because she did psychology, so I thought, you know, that would be quite helpful. I got my psychology teacher to read it, so definitely get your subject teacher to read it. I did get my form tutor to read it, but I don't think I changed anything from that. But the final thing that I wanted to speak about in this video is looking after your mental health in year 13, because I think it's not only a very physically challenging year, but it's very mentally challenging. If you do keep on top of things and you stay organised, that will definitely really help you. But I'm just going to talk about kind of the experience roughly, and then just some advice I think really helped me, because like I said earlier in the video, I struggled the most in kind of January to March time, and I was really scared that I wasn't going to get better in time for the real thing, and I thought, oh, that's going to really affect my performance. However, it didn't, and I definitely did find some ways to help. So I thought I'd go through them right now in case anybody else is worried about the same thing. So I'd say looking after your mental health in the first term, I definitely made sure to still do things I enjoyed. I was kind of like romanticizing it a lot, which definitely helps because it stops it feeling so like mundane and boring. Also just doing things like outside of school, like shopping, like just doing fun things. I still was continuing doing ballet. Like, don't give up anything that you enjoy, especially not in the first term, because it's not necessary. And yes, year 13 will take up a lot of your time, but I think if you can manage your time well and you can keep organised, you can still do all the things that you love, and that's going to be something that can be like your escape and your time to relax. In the first term, this is something that I definitely wish people had told me, and that was that your grades don't have to be where you want them by the end of the year at the start of the year, if that makes sense. My grades weren't really where I wanted them to be by the end of year 12, so I made this kind of like pact in my head that I was going to get perfect grades within like the first term of year 13, which is just not achievable, and that was way too much pressure to put on myself. So I would definitely say just obviously work really hard and change up your revision techniques if you feel like you need to, but don't put a load of pressure on yourself. Taking breaks, and sufficient breaks at that, but also full days off. Like I said, especially in the first term, it wasn't really something I did, and I think that's why I burnt out quite quickly. But you definitely can take weekends off and evenings off, and, you know, take good solid like hour-long at least breaks to make sure that you don't burn out. Now, I asked some of my friends if they had any kind of advice that they would give to people to not compare yourself, and I fully agree with this one. I think everyone's in such different paths in year 13 and year 12, to be honest. Everyone's doing different things at different paces, everyone's grades are very different, everyone is working different hours because different things work for different people, and it is impossible for everyone to be the same and working at the same pace. Easier said than done, but if you can keep reminding yourself of that, like, it will help you, because it's really easy to fall into a trap of comparison, especially academically. One of my biggest ones is to use your teachers. Obviously this kind of goes for just like general academics as well, like you mean it more on like a personal or mental term. My teachers were honestly some of the best people ever. Like, they helped me so much throughout year 13, especially during that kind of like rough winter term, because year 13 is difficult and teachers do put a lot of pressure on you. They can stress you out, they can scare you. It's kind of their job at the end of the day, but if you can make it, if you are struggling, then please make them aware of that, because they might have solutions that can help you. Like, I go on about this on TikTok all the time, but when I finally actually reached out for help with some of my teachers, they immediately had advice for me and things they could do to help me within college, and things that I wouldn't have even thought about asking them. So even though it's a very scary thing to do and it is daunting, like being vulnerable and opening up, please do it if you're struggling. February time, maybe like end of Feb, start of March, I actually properly opened up to a teacher, and after that, like, that is when I started to feel better and actually kind of get my life back a little bit, because you can't do year 13 alone. You physically can't do it. Use your friends, talk to your friends, talk to your family, talk to your teachers, whoever you feel most comfortable speaking to, speak to them, because it is a very high pressure year and it is scary, but you will get through it. But it's really, really hard to get through it alone. I do think that is everything I have to say on this video. I really hope that it was helpful and can be somewhat reassuring. I'm wishing you guys all the best if you are going into year 13 next year. You will literally be, oh, that's really soggy. It will be okay. You will get through it and you'll be fine. That is the end of today's video. I hope that you guys did enjoy. If you did, remember to subscribe down below. I post every Sunday and sometimes a cheeky upload on a Friday at 5 PM, so stick around. And I will see you guys next week.